Hey everyone, so recently there's been quite a lot of controversy around the casting of Halle Bailey as Ariel in the new remake of the Little Mermaid film, the live action one. And it's for such a stupid reason. It's just because she happens to be a black woman, and I think people are just being so stupid about it. Honestly, she seems like a great actress, and I have absolutely no problems with it, and I'm actually quite excited to see the new film. I'm keen to see what they do with it. I think Disney's live-action films have been a little bit hit and miss at times. I really enjoyed the Cinderella one. I was really excited by Beauty and the Beast, but kind of ended up being a bit let down with it. So, like I say, a little bit hit and miss. A lot of the arguments I've seen are that it's not authentic to the source material, and that since the film is based on a Danish story, then the actress should be white. But are we also forgetting that in the original animated film, Ariel had bright red hair? That's definitely not a natural hair colour. And even if we, suppose she's ginger and talk about that, only 2 to 4% of the Danish population actually have ginger hair. So even that's not that common. And then, there's the big thing that, your character isn't exactly your average Danish girl. She is literally a mythological creature. Plus, a lot of people are acting like the 1989 Disney animated film is the only telling of the Little Mermaid story. But honestly, the original is way darker and way more messed up, and the Disney version is in no way 100% accurate to it. So that's what I want to talk about today, the origin of mermaid myths, the original Little Mermaid story, as it's one of my favourite fairy tales of all time, and I'm going to be doing this cool costumey type makeup inspired by mermaids. The first version of the Little Mermaid story was written by Hans Christian Andersen and published in Denmark in 1837. But mermaid myths had been around for a long, long time before them. There are stories of half-man, half-fish creatures from nearly all cultures throughout all of history. One of the earliest stories of mermaid-like creatures dates back to around 5000 BC, so we're going back a pretty long time, with the story of a Babylonian god whose name I struggle to pronounce. I googled this, I think it's Oates, but if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sorry. This god apparently took the form of a fish when he was in the water, but could transform to have the feet of a human and the head of a human when he needed to come to land, and he would do that often to teach humans about stuff. Another big origin of mermaid stories comes from Africa. African legends portrayed water spirits, water gods, and mermaids as these powerful mothers of the sea with fish tails and the bodies of women who could heal the sick or bring good luck to people, but who also had these terrible tempers, and they'd quickly drown or confuse or cause illness in people who angered or disobeyed them. And, I should mention at this point, a lot of these early examples of mermaids in mythology had, surprise, surprise, black skin. It's perfectly normal and regular for mermaids to be black. It's not a new or unusual thing. Meanwhile, Chinese legends describe mermaids as being skilled beings whose tears could become pearls. And over in Europe, in 800 BC, Homer's Odyssey introduced us to the idea of sirens, who it's thought influenced and were influenced by mermaid myths. Sirens are described as bird women who call out to sailors, singing to them, luring them to their deaths. Other tellings have them as more half woman, half fish-like creatures. Some say they started off as half bird, half human, and then turned half fish, half human. There's lots of different things going on there. In more recent years, famous mermaid sightings have been described by the likes of John Smith and Christopher Columbus. Columbus was said to have seen mermaids near Haiti in around 1493, and he described them as not as pretty as they are depicted, for somehow in the face they look like men. Chances are these men either saw manatees or beluga whales. When you've been at sea for weeks, you probably have who knows what illnesses, you're a bit dehydrated, you might have a bit of sunstroke, and you're seeing something swimming around in the water, but it's kind of distorted. It's kind of not surprising, really, that animals like this got mistaken for mermaids. While there have been a huge range of stories about mermaids throughout history, the consensus eventually became that mermaids were these mythical creatures that were generally beautiful and seductive, with human-like top halves and fish-like bottom halves, but they could also be dangerous and cruel and were not to be messed with. Many stories show their tempers changing in a matter of seconds. Beautiful, calm, and inviting one minute, raging and murderous the next, a metaphorical embodiment of the ocean itself. Then we come to the story of the Little Mermaid, probably the most well-known mermaid story, partly because Hans Christian Andersen was awesome, and partly because it's been adapted and popularised by Disney. However, the Disney version is far more sanitary than the original. You all know the Disney version, right? Young Mermaid has a bit of an obsession with hoarding human things. She helps rescue a sailor in a storm, falls madly in love with him. She makes a deal with the sea witch Ursula to get legs so she can go on land and meet him, and in return the sea witch takes her voice. The deal is Ariel must make the prince fall in love with her, otherwise she loses her voice altogether. Ursula the sea witch also takes human form to try and seduce the prince, so Ariel will lose out. But true love wins in the end, as it usually does in Disney films. Ariel and Eric end up falling madly in love. She keeps her legs and her voice. They all live happily ever after on land, except Ursula, because, screw that bitch, apparently. The original story, however, is a little different. Okay, it's a lot different. The story begins with a young mermaid who lives in the ocean with her father, her grandmother, and her sisters. She is said to have the most beautiful voice in the entire world. Now, the main difference between mermaids and humans in this story, other than the fishtail, is that humans only have a short physical lifespan, but their souls live on forever after they die, whereas mermaids, on the other hand, can live for around 300 years, but when they die, their souls just disappear forever, and the mermaid is turned to foam and washed away by the sea. On a mermaid's 15th birthday, they're allowed to swim up to the surface of the ocean and catch a glimpse of the human world. Just have a look at it, see what's going on. The Little Mermaid becomes obsessed with hearing her sister's stories, and as the youngest, she can't wait for her turn to go up and have a look at the human world and see what it's all about. So, on her 15th birthday, our Little Mermaid, she swims to the surface where, from a distance, she sees this prince partying on a boat. She sees that he's, really handsome, but she has no idea what his personality's like or what he's like, so obviously being shallow like that, she falls immediately head over heels in love with him, because that's what all 15-year-old girls do, right? While she's watching him and falling in love, a storm hits the prince's boat and our mermaid rushes to save him. Although he never actually sees her or knows it's her that saves him, instead he's found by another young woman kind of on the beach where Ariel's left him, and he gives all the credit of saving his life to this random woman, right? She's from a local temple or something like that. He doesn't really know who she is, but he gives her all the credit. Back under the water, our mermaid decides she wants to be with this prince so badly, so she goes and sees the sea witch, where they make a deal. And this is where it gets really dark, right? The sea witch agrees to help the mermaid get on land to meet her prince, in exchange for her voice. So, the Little Mermaid agrees, and the sea witch immediately cuts out the mermaid's tongue and takes her voice. She then gives her a potion which literally splits the mermaid's fin in two to create legs, and she's in excruciating pain when this happens. She kind of passes out and she wakes up on land, where she looks human, she has legs, but every step she takes feels like she's walking on sharp knives. She's in constant pain, her feet are constantly bleeding, plus, remember at this point, her tongue has been ripped out. That can't be pleasant. The other problem is that while she has a human body now, she still has a mermaid soul. So if she wants a human soul and to live eternally with her prince as these kind of two human souls forever, the deal with the sea witch states that she has to get him to fall in love with her and marry her so they can share a human soul. If the mermaid fails in this task and the prince marries someone else, the mermaid will die the next day and immediately turn to foam and be washed away by the sea. Luckily for our mermaid, the prince is also super shallow and the mermaid is kinda hot. So once he meets her, even though she can't talk to him, she is so beautiful that he is instantly obsessed with her. They dance and dance and dance together. That's his favorite thing to do with her. Even though she is in the most horrific pain the entire time, he basically carries her around like a little trophy, showing her off for her beauty and her dancing. He treats her as a prop, an object. He's not the best guy, let's be honest. During all this though, we can't forget that this guy is a prince, and usually he needs to marry for political reasons, right? His parents want him to marry a princess from a neighbouring kingdom, but he's actually no, I won't marry for politics. I'll only marry for love. And I love another. Okay, so maybe this is gonna have a happy ending, right? Well, no. Turns out the only person the prince says he can ever love is the one who saved him from drowning in the storm. The one that our mermaid saved him from, right? Except he doesn't know that she did it, and without her voice she can't tell him. And he's giving the credit to some other girl. And then it's revealed that this other girl from the temple, who's taking the credit for saving him, is a secret princess. What are the odds? So he immediately tosses the beautiful mermaid who can't speak and is in constant pain to the side, declares his love for the princess, and marries her. Our mermaid is heartbroken, she is distraught. She loved this man, she gave up her voice for this man, she's endured pain every single day for him, she gave up her family and her life for him, and he's just thrown her away, and now she's just gonna turn to foam. She sits by the sea and she just waits to die, only for her sisters to appear out of the water and try and save her. They've been watching everything that's happened, and they've made a deal with the Sea Witch too. They all gave up their beautiful, long, flowing hair in exchange for a knife. All our mermaid has to do is take the knife, kill the prince, and drip his blood on her feet and legs, and this will immediately transform her back into a mermaid again, and she can go back to living in the ocean with her mermaid family. Happy ending, kind of, except for the prince, right? No. Turns out she can't and won't kill him, because despite being a selfish, shallow pig, she loves him so much because he's just so handsome. So she throws the knife in the ocean and is turned to foam. Yeah. That's it. There is still a slightly happy ending on the end of this, where, as it turns out, she's not quite dead. Because apparently she's been, trying so hard to get this eternal soul, and she's been fighting for love or something like that, she becomes an air spirit. And she's told she has the chance to earn an eternal soul by doing good deeds for human for the next 300 years. So I guess there's that. And that is where the story ends. Lovely. So, moral of this story, don't fall for a man you don't know. Don't give up your life and let yourself be hurt over some man. And even if you spend your life fighting for love and an eternal soul, you'll probably just end up as basically a slave for 300 years. Or at least that's what I take away from the story. I actually think it's a really amazing story, because even though it is dark and there's no, ultimate happy ending, it's so much more complex in the Disney version, and I really enjoy it, because it is sad and dark and a little bit terrifying, but there's so much more you can learn from it and take away from it, and it's far more open to interpretation than the Disney version. There's not just good or bad characters, everyone has flaws, and some people have some redeeming qualities. The Sea Witch isn't just a villain. She is the person who takes the mermaid's tongue, she is the person who essentially inflicts pain on her and takes her sister's hair, but the mermaid did agree to that deal. The witch wasn't underhanded or sneaky, she didn't try and sabotage the mermaid, she even gave her a second chance. Ultimately, she was just doing her job, as horrible as that sounds. The mermaid, she's young and naive and idealistic, but she's also silly and shallow and far too boy crazy. The prince is also shallow and thoughtless, but at least he did try and retain his independence and make his own choices about his life and his loves. I mean, is it really his fault that he didn't want to marry a strange woman who could barely communicate with him? And the princess he's married, she didn't actively try and get rid of the mermaid or anything. You could say it wasn't her fault the prince chose her instead. But then she did take the credit for someone else's work, so maybe that's a bit dodgy, I don't know. Like I say, none of it's black and white. It really shows the grey sides of things that we see in real life, and I really do appreciate that, and I enjoy that in a story. Anyway, that's pretty much me done. I guess the point I want to make is that the original Little Mermaid story is dark and terrifying, and Disney took a hell of a lot of liberties in changing and adapting the story as it is. So I'm not really sure how fair it is to fuss over them being authentic and faithful to some details when they've completely thrown out other details. While the Hans Christian Andersen story may have taken place in Denmark, there are so many amazing stories about mermaids from history coming from Africa and Asia and the Middle East. So really, all those people complaining about Ariel being played by a black actress, it's just a bit silly, isn't it? Because, if anything, the Disney creators are being more authentic to the original mermaid myths. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a whole lot of fuss about nothing, to be honest. So yeah, this is basically where I want to end this. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts at this point about what you think about the new Disney film, what you think about the original Little Mermaid story, what you think about these kind of original dark fairy tales in general. I absolutely love reading them. The Hans Christian Andersen ones, the even darker stories by the Brothers Grimm. I love some of the more modern adaptations by Angela Carter and stuff like that. Yeah, it's one of my favourite things to read, the old creepy dark fairy tales like that. So I guess if you would like more videos like this, please let me know, because I'm more than happy to do it. Sleeping Beauty is another story that the original is so completely dark and so messed up. I'd actually love to talk about that in a video if you guys would be up for hearing it. So if you would, let me know. But yeah, thank you for watching and listening today. I appreciate you guys so much. If you're interested in sea and underwater stuff like this, my octopus t-shirt is also back available for sale on my merch store, so you can go check that out. But yeah, shameless self-promotion over. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you guys again soon. Huge thank you to everyone supporting me on Patreon this month, with a special thank you going to Data Jack, Trae Sprowles, Gambit and Chauffeur, Liv's Pantyhose Addiction, Mark Dauner, Christian Berg, Natalie Roma, Simon Lund, Jamin Shepherd, Robert Corte, Peter Karak, Sir Michael Moore, Christina the Atheist, Sage Valarial and Lauren Hart. You guys and everyone supporting me on Patreon are absolutely amazing, and I couldn't do this without you, so thank you so much. And remember, if you are supporting me on Patreon, you can get exclusive access to my Discord server where you can come join in the conversation. So hopefully I'll see you guys over there. And thank you all so much!